I live in a place called Rancho Murrieta, down outside of Sacramento. Pretty susceptible place, actually. And so the brief story is that I'm a musician and I have a production company. In March of 2020, I played a show in Southern California on March 6th. And we all know what happened after that. Because of that show, the whole country shut down. So,
was that good?
Yeah, when it got to be the fall, like September, I kind of went old school and started going through my Rolodex and just making calls. John and I had a conversation, and I said, "What are you up to?" And he told me about Paradise, California, that he was building the most fire-safe home in the world up in Paradise, and he said you should come up and see it. So I did, and I was pretty blown away. And again, as a consumer and getting the education on these materials, I was blown away. And there was three things that happened that day. The first thing that happened was that property is on a corner. And as we stood there and started talking, I think there was 6 projects going on around John's project. And they were all sticks. Even to the point of dog ear, is that what you call them, a dog ear fence? Wood fence, right? So that made an impression on me. And I'm like, why is this happening? You know, why are we rebuilding the same stuff that just burned down? That kind of thing. The second thing that happened that had great impact is people were just stopping by and the one guy got out of his truck and he's like, "Tell me what do you got going on here?" And he wasn't familiar with it. And John gave him a little presentation, the same one I got, so I got it twice. And I said to the gentleman, I said, is that your wife in the truck? And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, let me help her out." And he said, "She won't get out. You know, our house burned down. She doesn't want the property anymore. She wants to move away." And she's basically got PTSD over it. You know, it was trauma time. Right? The third thing that happened was John excused himself because he had an appointment with FEMA. And FEMA came to visit that day. So it was a drive home for me that I'll always remember because I was just scratching my head. And I went back up again in November to see the progress, and I had a thought. And John and I had kind of talked about it because we have mutual friends in the music business. Like, why don't we do some kind of awareness thing? You know, let's get some of our, you know, important musician friends, you know, our A-listers to get on board, and maybe we can reach a community, the consumer. So why can't a consumer make a decision on what they're building with, right? You know, somebody like me, you know, I call the contractor, and the contractor comes over and gives me a bid and starts building sticks. It's because I'm not educated. And so I thought a lot about that. And so I ran it up the flagpole, John, that I wanted to start a movement. So in January, I started BRIK California, B-R-I-K. And BRIK stands for Building Responsibly with Integrity and Knowledge. And the idea behind BRIK is that it's an educational nonprofit. It's a movement. And the goal is to go into all these communities, go to the fire safe fairs, go to fire safe council meetings. We participated, and actually, to back up a little bit, I initiated it in January, and by July we had our letter of designation. We were up and running. Had a bank account. There's nothing in it. And there's a QR code somewhere here. But we're up and running, and so it's been a year. And we've attended multiple fire safe fairs. We have participated in a county-wide fair in Amador called Smoke Chasers, which was very successful for the first go. And you know, super excited about it. So all that said, I'm going to just have you guys pass these around. And there is just general information on BRIK. But you know, what BRIK California is about is bringing all this great information into communities to save lives. We need to save some lives, we need to save property, and we need to reduce the impact on the environment. And there's a lot of other things that go along with it. Everything from insurance premiums that I heard you guys talking about, to bugs, to termites. You know, that all goes away. It all goes away. So anyway, I got really passionate about it, and it's going well. And if you know of a community or somebody that lives in a community that doesn't have this kind of stuff going on where we can get together and talk about this stuff, look me up, because I will get in there and help them create that. So that's my spiel. And I don't think you're probably going to have any questions for me, because unless it's about like some jazz chords or, you know, you want to talk about.
Say what instrument?
Guitar. Yeah. So anyway, without further ado, you want to take over, John, and do your demo? John's going to do a great demonstration that I love, and James is going to.
I'm going to piggyback a little bit on BRIK, what he said. We're currently building a home in Paradise for a woman who was so traumatized by the fire that she's virtually convalescent, okay, and has not come out of that. I've traveled to fire disasters all over the world, and I don't think people appreciate the trauma that people go through when they've lived through that. And it's devastating. It's devastating to these people. And as Breck's pointing out, we're losing lives. This fire that's currently going on right now, they've accounted for 4 lives lost. Okay. One of them was a woman who spent 50 years as a forest fire lookout. 50 years, okay? And she got caught in her house that is a stick-framed house, was a stick-framed house, and she lost, and she died because of that. Now this kind of insanity has got to stop. It's got to stop, and it can be done. It can be done. So if we could play that real quick, and then I'm gonna.
For fire safety with concrete masonry.
Concrete masonry is a non-combustible material. That means that
Yeah, but-
situation will not cause fire.
I'm going to say one more thing while they're firing that up, and I'll shut up as soon as it reboots. The second time I went up, the other impression that really was huge to me was I went up and all the walls, the electrical, the plumbing, everything was happening. And all those other homes that were stick frames, they kind of look the same. So the amount of time that it takes is just like unbelievable with erecting these structures, not just residential. You know, you can talk about all the commercial stuff he's done too. But I remember that vividly. Going, have they been here to work? You know, I'm kind of familiar with that.
The 1,500 square foot house, 600 square feet of garage. We came in, set up, and walked away in 7 days. All walls up, everything else.
Boom.
And when you build with this material, you skip 5 steps that you would in conventional building, stick frame. So when we walk away, now I can't put a skeleton up on a house like that. That could probably be done in 3 days. But then they've got to come back insulated, exterior vapor barrier, exterior sheathing, drywall and taping. That's 5 steps that we eliminate by simply building with this material. Is that ready?
Today, many buildings meet and pass fire codes. Yet when a fire occurs, all of them burn, except one. The one designed and built for fire safety with concrete masonry.
Concrete masonry is a non-combustible material. That means under any situation, it will not catch on fire. Combustible materials such as sheetrock, other wall systems will catch on fire. It's just a question of how hot do they have to be before they catch on fire.
A laboratory test is used to determine durability under fire conditions.
This test is the official ASTM E119 test. This test measures how fast heat will transmit through a wall to set something aflame on the other side of a wall.
The ASTM E119 test is being administered on a series of wall assemblies. 2 gypsum walls and 1 made of autoclaved aerated concrete, or AAC block, a masonry product.
We take the assembly as it would be constructed in the field, and we're exposing it, in this case, for 2-hour duration to a prescribed time temperature curve, which will see temperatures in excess of 1800 degrees Fahrenheit within that 2-hour time frame. Once we've exposed that assembly to the fire, we will move that away from the furnace. We will then face the exposed side of that assembly towards a fire water hose stream application. The typical fire department hose stream at approximately 30 psi.
Let's see what happens to a fire-rated gypsum wall.
This is what's left of a 2-hour fire-rated sheetrock wall.
Now the ASTM E119 test is repeated on high-impact gypsum. Many building materials are classified as fire-resistive, meaning they will burn if they get hot enough. These materials may be fire-rated for 1 or 2 hours, but as you will see, that designation can be very misleading.
This is real-life situation. When a firefighter walks into a building that's burning, 2-hour fire-rated sheetrock walls supposed to protect the occupants, put the hose on it, this is what's left. This will not protect occupants, this will not protect property, this will not give you the time to get out of a burning building. This is not the type of construction you want between you and a fire.
Gypsum can be retested for 1 hour, and if it passes the hose stream test in that 1 hour, they give it a 2-hour rated assembly. Unfortunately, that doesn't really reflect what happens out in a fire condition. We don't get a second chance in fires.
Masonry products don't need a second chance. They can pass E119 the first time around without any problem. See for yourself. This masonry wall of autoclaved aerated concrete has been subjected to the same temperature curve as the gypsum wall. After the full 2 hours, the physical condition of the masonry wall is excellent and strong. When the fire hose is turned on, the wall maintains its integrity. The hose stream test only cleans the masonry wall.
As you can see between the comparison test between a gypsum wall assembly and a wall assembly such as this, the performance is dramatic. That is, this wall was able to withstand the fire exposure for 2 hours and then immediately face that water impact. And when we did that, this wall held up. The other tests that we performed, the gypsum disintegrated very quickly, if not immediately. And so you can see the performance under fire conditions and under the hose stream application dramatically different. This is a far more durable wall assembly.
AAC with a high R value, high sound transmission rating, and a low unit weight is an excellent choice for balanced design.
As a decision maker, if you're on a school board, a hospital board, if you're an architect, a building owner, somebody in maintenance, what needs to be understood is that masonry products will not allow the spread of fire. Masonry products will not burn. Masonry products contain fires where they start, limiting property damage. It has all the benefits we need for building owners.
Whether you're an architect or an engineer, a developer or a builder, or a public official, you are entrusted to provide the safest possible environment for the people who own and manage buildings, the people who use them, and the ones who protect them in case of catastrophe. A balanced design approach to fire safety design can make a difference, a huge difference. Masonry is the foundation of a fully balanced system of fire safety. Combined with prevention, fire detection and alarm systems, and mechanical suppression, masonry literally can make the difference between life and death. It's the one choice we can all live with.
I asked them to take that wall back into the furnace, turn it up to 2,400 degrees, and kept it in there for 4 hours. They brought it out, same thing happened, nothing but steam. Nothing
Was it the
that's-
same wall that they used in the
It's
first?
that exact same wall.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. So, I'll demonstrate a little bit here.
You're looking for smoke? Oh, there it is.
My hand's 1 inch away. Okay, and obviously glowing red. And I could stand here for an hour if I could hold this torch up for an hour. And
You did it at my house for about 7 minutes because I was timing you. I just kept talking and you're like, and I finally asked if it was hot. And you guys, not bad.
you can feel the heat off of this side, but nothing on my side. And that's 1 inch thick. So that's the heat protection it has. With the other aspects of a building, like what we're doing and what James will explain too, the use of the steel trusses, magnesium oxide board, this will take 2,600 degrees. And this will replace your sheathing, your roof sheathing, okay? And I won't go too deep into it, James, that's your game. This is also magnesium oxide board. And this is to be used as in place of regular drywall. That 2-hour rated stuff that just exploded, this also takes 2,600 degrees, okay? Most of you who know about the fire here in Reading know that they estimated the fire tornadoes that took place here, they estimated those were burning at 2,300 degrees. And that's with all the centrifugal force that causes that. The Twin Towers, they estimated, went down at 2,300 degrees. This material here will take up to 2,900 degrees before, and it still won't combust. It'll basically start to melt because of the silica sand content in it, and then basically turn to glass. Well, if you're in something at 2,900 degrees, you better be gone. But that's another aspect about using this material in communities. Every major emergency evacuation that's taken place in this country, people have died. That's just the nature of that emergency evacuation. I don't care if it was Katrina, what. Several people died trying to evacuate in Paradise. Wasn't the best evacuation conditions, but the point is, if you have a structure of size, you can shelter in place. And that's what's being missed nowadays by these fire experts and these community experts that are complaining about not a proper evacuation route or something of that nature. Well, Kathy Schupman didn't get out, and she lost her life. Didn't have the opportunity to evacuate. That's a shame. That's a shame.
Can I say something now?
Yeah.
So in the community I live in, I've lived there since the late 80s. Highly susceptible again. They're preparing to build a community, sports center, with a pool and they have the golf course and the tennis courts and all that kind of thing. But interestingly enough, we did a presentation for SMUD, an online presentation, and there was a bunch of gentlemen there playing bocce ball, and they hung out after and they were watching the presentation, and one of them happened to be a board member. And now there's a conversation going on because of exactly that, the escape situation. Well, in my community, the main drag is called Murrieta Parkway, and during 4th of July, they have a parade there. You can't even go to the grocery store. It takes an hour to go to the grocery store because you can't, and if they think that's going to be an escape route, it's just not going to happen. People are going to lose their lives. So now, John talks to him, James talks to him. Now they're like taking a look at, well, what if we built that community center as a shelter in place? Basically right in the center of the community, the property, which is a great idea. So whether it's retrofitting or going into a community that is still growing, and you have homes that are susceptible, like the home I live in, you know, these communities that can come in and get built out like this, become a fire break. They can become a fire break if it happens to be in that direction. And then the larger buildings can be shelter in place. And I think it's great.
Yeah. Rick and I are working currently with 3 major developments in the state here, and they're all stymied and stopped and roadblocked by the Attorney General in this state. Okay? And its main reason for that is fire safety. Fire safety, not proper evacuation routes, on and on and on. They're considered to be in high fire zones, okay? Tejon Ranch, Gwinnett Valley in Lake County. There's a huge one down in San Diego. All have been stopped, okay, because of fire safety. Well, the economic benefit of those communities, done properly, would benefit all those areas, Gwinnett Valley, Lake County, so on and so forth, and they're being stopped. They're being stopped. Out of, and I use the term not as stupid, although it could apply in some, out of ignorance, because they don't know of the option that can be done. Literally, people could be in a house built out of this material and everything that goes along with it, the entire envelope, the fire could roll right over the top of them and they could walk out unscathed. Literally, I'm 100% confident of that. I would be the test dummy to do it if anybody wanted to build one and put it under that example.
And John, speaking of the ignorance behind it, this is not a new product.
No.
This talk a little bit about how long it's been around.
It's been around for 100 years. A Swedish scientist developed it right after World War I due to the decimation of the forests, okay, to come up to for an alternative to building with wood, okay? It's the exact same formula. There's no toxicity in its manufacturing. It's a huge benefit to, if we had a couple thousand plants around this world, because the byproduct that comes out of this is pure hydrogen gas, which mitigates CO2, okay? So when the cake rises to the level it's classed at, what comes out and what does the aeration is hydrogen gas. It chemically reacts with the lime and creates the aeration throughout the block. Now, we're not going to turn the greenhouse effect around by it unless we have a couple million plants. But the point is, we're not cutting the lungs out of our earth, the trees, and so on and so forth. We're actually building, and silica sand, there's four ingredients with this material. It's the exact same formula as a Swedish scientist developed in 1923. It's Portland cement, it's hydrated lime, it's silica sand, it's water, and a very minute amount of expansion agent that chemically reacts with the lime and causes the aeration through the block. You pour it into a mold at about 2 feet deep, and you can stand there and literally watch it rise like bread dough. And then the hydrogen gas blows out of it, goes into a 24-hour cure room. When it goes into the autoclave, it goes in for, depending on what size autoclave, for a 12-hour cycle. When it comes out at the end of the autoclave, unlike the concrete that's under this floor right here, it's 100% cured. 100% cured. The sidewalks and everything out there, you guys in construction, you know that concrete is still cured. Yeah. This comes out, it's completely cured. The entire tobermite formation has been accomplished in that autoclave process. So it's pressure cured, and it comes out with no toxicity in its manufacturing or so on. Now, fire seems to be the big issue here, as it should be, but I've understood that California has sometimes some seismic issues. Yeah. This material performs tremendously in seismic activity. And why is that? Because of its lightweightness, okay? It's able to move, it's able to flex, come right back into design, but yet move and flex. I've watched a wall move 4 inches. A couple of carpenters. Are there any carpenters here? A couple carpenters are up there trying to bang a 3.5-inch ledger on the wall, and they didn't drill their holes precisely for the anchor bolts, so they're up there with two 16-pound sledges just racking this ledger. And I watched that wall move 4 inches. Boom. Boom, like that. I went down, checked from top to bottom, not a crack, anything like that. Seismically, it performs tremendously. And you can pull this up on the website, Kobe, Japan, 1995, 7.2 earthquake, over 5,000 structures out of the AAC built in Kobe, Japan. I toured a minimum of 300 of them, and they had to condemn one building out of all of those. And what had happened, it had about cantilevered halfway out where the ground had fallen out from it. Whole house, still structurally sound, they could have come back, compacted dirt underneath it, and moved away, but they ended up condemning it. And not to mention that, many of the houses, those AAC structures saved by being a fire break to those houses, too. The hospital in Kobe was built out of AAC, saved hundreds of lives there because of that. It will save, in this area, it'll save 65 to 70% of people's energy cost in their home, heating and cooling. 70%. Now that's another thing. Are we serious about saving energy and conserving energy, or are we just, around November every 2 to 4 years, we make it a political campaign? The power outages that we're having now and everything else because we've got an inadequate consumption on the load right now. Many attributes. Everybody's seen this probably.
Nicely done indeed. Yeah, Barbara done.
Soundproof. Has the highest STC rating of any material in construction because the aeration accepts all the mechanical vibrations, so on and so forth. Here's another example of that. Do you guys know anything about weapons? Every one of them. These are 9mm full metal jackets shot at 15 yards. See how close it hit to that edge? Didn't chip it out, didn't do anything like that. I've shot AK-47s, doesn't penetrate through it. I've shot a .45 hollow point Hydra shot round, which is supposed, that titanium shaft in that Hydra shot is supposed to keep that hollow point that's spread out and is mushroom going through the body and tearing a hole about that big in it. Well, it went in about 5.5 inches, turned up a little bit, and never even mushroomed. That's how well it accepts the mechanical vibrations. So when you've got a second story, okay, and you're putting in a wood floor on the second story, you can put in panels, 2 AAC panels also. But, and every hotel ought to have that. I've stayed in so many hotels where it,
Apartments.
yeah, apartment buildings, so on and so forth. I've stayed in motels, and my God, it's like people are running 24-hour gyms upstairs, you know?
Some of the motels you stay in with the ballistics tests and the noise thing, that's ideal.
Brand new wood framed home, wood floor. I don't care how well you glue it, screw it, and tattoo it. Brand new home, you're going to walk in, there's going to be creaks in that floor. Because it's not just the floor, it's the entire diaphragm. Vibration goes across, goes up the walls and across the ceiling. Well, with AAC, when it goes across the floor and hits the wall, it's gone. It's gone. It's over. So no creaking, so on and so forth. We also can get 20-foot long panels, too, which stand for floors and roofs and so on and so forth. Right now, it's not real economical to ship them up here. So this is an O block. This is where your vertical reinforcement goes, okay? This is a 8-inch by 24-inch by 12-inch block. Now, I can drill through that block in about 28 seconds. So you have your vertical reinforcement placed there. The material we suggest is stucco. Okay, you can put about any facade you want on there. You can veneer, you can do, block, stone, whatever. This is the stucco. Waterproof. This will take 2,600 degrees also. Okay, now we could come back tomorrow and the same amount of water without evaporation would be right there. And I don't know if you want to lean forward a little bit, but I'll emphasize it a little bit. Still not going through the divide there. It is, this is true hydrophobia, is actually what it is, yeah. And dry as a bone. Dry as a bone. So this is the stucco we recommend to go on it, but you can place any type of facade you want on the material.
What do you guys recommend for stucco? Is it a Auburn product? What is it?
It's
Is it your own? I mean, is it one you guys are doing, or is it?
Yeah. I started developing it in Spain, and it's been adapted since then. I used marble aggregate out of Spain in the material I brought over here. And then the brothers who had the plant in Spain, they came over, changed the formula, and flew the plane into the ground. Yeah. But with the marble dust for the aggregate, you could take and trowel it, and you could take and spray your trowel a little bit and trowel it and fade that color off of it so it looked very patina. You can do the same thing with this material here too. And the thing of it is, it's a one-coat system, which again saves tremendously on the cost. Your regular cementitious stucco, you got to go around the building 4 times. Your lath, that's 1 time around the building. Your scratch coat, which is 1 time around the building, and then code requires that you wait 3 weeks for that to cure, and you go with your brown coat, that's another time around the building, wait 3 weeks, and then your color coat. So that's 4 times around the building. Qualified stucco man, which they're getting very few nowadays, because of the elastomerics and the synthetic stuccos out there, can spread the 1/2 inch in 1 coat around the building. Darby it out, texture it however they want it textured, and so on and so forth. The stucco has a water retainer in it, so it will stay. You can do an entire wall, come back and Darby it out, smooth it out, put whatever texture you want on it at that point in time. The same material is used as the plaster for the interior, okay? So with framed interior walls, you could do all of your interior walls out of AAC too, which is kind of nice between the master bedroom and the great room, so that the little ones aren't driving mom and dad crazy, whatever. You can do all your interior walls. Got one coming up in Sparks, Nevada. All the interior walls are out of AAC. It's a little, 5,000?
Just under 5,000 because that hits fire
112 pallets, a little 5,000 plus yoga room, studio, and yada, yada, yada. A little 5,000 square foot lean-to, Oceanic over there. Guy's going to throw up. But
So could you just paint the product too? Could you?
yeah.
I mean, without having to do too much? You'd probably see him or something.
Yeah. You'd have to know this person.
Yeah.
Yeah. And his wife.
He's asking if you can just spray.
No,
can
could
you
you
just
Yeah,
paint?
yeah.
so
Could
the
you just
paint-
spray it? I mean, just with the good paint?
Yeah, the stucco?
No,
Oh.
the blocks themselves.
Just-
Could you?
Just what, spray paint them?
Look like you're painting a house.
No, because
Would it just soak it up, or That's what I'm asking.
Not necessarily, but you're not going to have, it's not going to be a real attractive finish on it.
Inside of the garage you could, but yeah, it's gonna be.
I mean, I'm just
rough.
curious, I mean, like a cinder block.
Yeah, there's,
Well, a lot of people do just paint their cinder block, they just light their mortar lines and just paint it.
I'm just curious. what
Some
they do.
people will be fine with
yeah,
that.
I mean, it would certainly suffice, yeah. It's not real attractive. I mean, I've had people say, hey, that's the look I want too. You know, they want that castle look. They actually had me face the block. Every block I laid, I chisel faced the block so it looked like stone. And they came back and spray painted it with dyes and stuff and made it look like stone.
And I don't know if this is pertinent to what you just said about it soaking it up or whatever, but if you took that block that he has his hand on and you threw it in the pool, it'll float.
Yeah. James going to do that after this. He's going to take this.
Yeah, we have a pool ready.
Yeah, no. We did that in Arizona. We took a block, threw it in a swimming pool. It floated for 3.5 months. Okay, finally took on enough water that it took it down to the level of the pool. We pulled it out, set it on the side of the pool. All the moisture whipped out in 3 days. You know, so one of the major problems in the standard construction nowadays is the drywall. Right? It's one of the biggest mold gatherers in a house. You know, this mold will not grow to this. Mold needs 3 things. It needs warmth, it needs a food source, which is cellulose, and it needs moisture. There's no cellulose in this whatsoever. So there's no opportunity for mold to grow on it. That's kind of a nice thing when we've got military barracks across the country where people are, the military, our military's families are suffering because they're in barracks that are full of black mold. It's hard for me to do these demonstrations because I just want to grab some people and want to fish them around the neck and just shake the shit out of them, you know?
So why is adoption so low and slow?
Why is it so low? It's education right now. It's giving the people the opportunity to see it and have the option.
It's too good of a product for the United States. Big money don't like that. It's gonna take away from Red Emerson.
Takes away from
Industries. It's gonna take away from, it just is. That's what, every great product never takes off here, but Spain will have it.
When I first introduced it into the state of Oregon, okay, this is in 2000, I literally got death threats from people in the lumber industry, literally. So that's the kind of thing you fight, but you fight it because what's going on with people's lives being lost, their belongings being lost, their life memories being lost. It's time to fight, people. It's time to fight and quit bowing down. Well, it's hard for us to step out of our box. Well, talk to the people that went through Paradise. Talk to some of the people here that went through this fire here. You know, was this considered, was the town of Reading, was it in the high fire zone when the fire came through? No, it's right in the middle of town. Santa Rosa, Coffee Park subdivision, entire subdivision gone.
I would also mention that there was extensive invitations that went out to public employees in this community across the board with emails and also with follow-up phone calls.
No, he said no, it hasn't been seismically tested enough. That was his lame excuse as to keep it out, okay? And I said, so you mean to tell me if I bring a set of plans in, engineered for this seismic zone, you're going to deny it? You're going to tell me no? I said, no, you're not going to do that. You're going to have to tell me why no. And they can't do that. They can't do that. Any engineer here knows engineering is mathematics, right? Yeah. Okay. Well, here it is. Here it is. Now, you tell me why no. And I think Tennis Wick, yeah, that name comes up. He was the, well, I talked to him about an attorney being so far between his buttocks that he wouldn't be able to turn his head right or left, and he kind of gave it up. Gave it up.
And it
But
kinda-
it's the same thing.
Doesn't it, and then all of a sudden, when we learn about this stuff and we get in these, and we get the consumer in this situation where they can understand this, where they can make a decision that they want to build out of, like Jim, considering building a barn, what is it? Just a big building? A big building. And, and now having the resources with the likes of James and John to go get that and get it through the process, properly to make it happen.
Well, and why are we letting an agency dictate to us what we're going to build our houses out of, which are, again, back to the conventional stick framing, so on and so forth? Why are we going to allow that? In other words, you're going to force me to build a house that could burn down and take my family's lives. You're going to force me to do that. I don't think so.
And the idea behind building that house for your family is to leave it to your family.
Yeah, yeah.
Especially if it's 5,000 square feet.
It's the people have got to stand up and say, look, we want to build out of this because we know it will protect us from fires. We know it'll save us 60 to 70% of our energy costs. We know, well, here's another concept that the U.S. economy doesn't like real well, is these homes will be there for at least 400 years. Now that doesn't work, does it? We want stuff to break down, so we got to rebuild it or something like that. Well, that's what's happening in stick framing right now. The lumber that's being grown now is genetically engineered lumber. Everybody that is a carpenter knows that, and you can't hardly drive a nail in it without splitting the stuff.
Yeah, he gets flashed in the face with it every now.
What's
So
that?
it's so wet.
Oh,
You try to
well,
grab
that's
one,
what I
if
was
it
thinking.
sits in the sun for 2 days, it's so twisted you can't grab it.
Yeah, and so,
It's all
and
garbage.
kind of like me, based on what he said earlier, and what you're saying is, you're taking green lumber and you're framing, and then you're covering it up with sheetrock.
Well,
and you're
Us
not
as
gonna get
contractors
mold.
have to sign a deal that goes to the county that'll say that it's so less of a moisture content, so little of a moisture content. It's crap. You grab a 12.2 by 4 weighs 45 pounds, you know it's a little bit.
Well, the lumber is again, it's genetically engineered, and the rings on it are like this now.
It's because Red didn't grow a tree in 20 years that he can harvest.
Yeah.
He's done it. He has a pine and a cedar and firs that he can do in 20 years. I'm not against it. I see the guy 3-4 times a week. He's a great man, but he's bigger than, and the same reason that attorney general is turning that down. Somebody's in his pocket.
Yeah.
You guys know that. That's just the world we live in right now.
Yeah,
I'm ready to build one.
that's the world we allow.
I'm going to tell another little story, kind of as a segue, that I enjoy telling. And it's about a place called Monin's Rill, which is basically in between Santa Rosa and St. Helena, or Helena, as John likes to call it, up on the ridge. And they had a community. They still have it. I don't know if they've started rebuilding it. But there's 14 structures, I think, and one of the structures was the main building, the clubhouse, right? The 13 other structures were residents, and they all lived in this community. They own 700 acres, 500 and something acres. Anyway, we spent the day there doing a demonstration and asking and telling and all this kind of stuff. And my question was, who was the last guy here? And there's these two young guys, maybe in their late 20s, early 30s. And I said, what was it like? What happened? He goes, well, everything was fine. And we were standing right here where we are, and there's a ridge up there, and we could see that fire starting to come over the ridge. Fire didn't come down the hill. The embers came, and they had mitigated. The embers came and caught their structures on fire, and that backlit that fire up the hill to meet what was coming down. So, with this kind of building, there's no vents in your attic, and there's no vents in your subfloor. So even if you do mitigate and there's that one little dang leaf that's right next to your vent in your attic, you got a problem. And now everybody else has a problem. So,
Yep.
you know, I mean, and that has to do with
What was it like in Iga? Were you out there when it was burning?
I wasn't there, but I worked in the fire service for 15 years.
I was in Ready moving horses when the car fires were rolling, and the embers were coming down, looked like paper plates.
Oh,
And they were
man.
glowing, they looked like, I mean,
Terrible.
they were big.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I mean, it was scary as shit, but it was still,
Right.
and we were just
And-
trying to
and
get
you
stuff
know-
out, you know?
And you know, more
Yeah.
fires are started due to embers than the fire actually reaching the structure. Yeah.
What's the pricing on this compared to stick frame and block and plank?
Right now, we're toe-to-toe with stick frame, and in many instances, we're beating stick frame. Okay?
All in with construction time and
And
yada yada?
shipping to the site, is this a lot heavier than?
Well, here's a little secret, guys, Mike. I'm trying to get funding to build a plant here in the Pacific Northwest, okay? Because I ship my material out of Monterrey, Mexico, okay? Which over doubles the price of the block, okay? If I had a plant here, I would cut that shipping cost and stick framing wouldn't stand a chance.
You come up through Brownsville or McAllen?
We truck it to Brownsville and then rail it up. I'm the only one in the US that rails it, okay? You couldn't do it by truck nowadays, you know, it'd be
Price of fuel.
cost prohibitive, you know?
Poland, Sacramento, right?
Yeah, I've got stock in Sacramento, I've got stock in Oregon, yeah. So there again, it over doubles the cost of the material.
And you have stock in Brownsville?
No.
And you just ship?
No, it comes from the plant by truck to Brownsville and it's put on the train in Brownsville and railed up. Yeah. So,
How many homes in Paradise were built with this before the fire?
there weren't any,
Not one.
not one.
Oh, interesting.
Not
That's too
one.
bad.
No. I've got pictures, I should have brought them in, but I thought with all the people that were going to be here, I wouldn't have time to show it. But I've got pictures of in Santa Rosa.
Jake has got some pictures that he can put up on.
Okay. You know, ICF, everybody familiar with ICF construction? Insulated concrete form block, it's coffee cups, basically, is what your house is made out of, okay? And they claim that it's fireproof. Well, I've got pictures of a house in Santa Rosa that was ICF, and it's gone. That's gone. You know, unlike concrete, when it heats to a certain temperature, you've lost all of its structural integrity because the moisture inside is swollen, and structurally it's gone. So you got to tear it down anyway. This, you don't have to. It could take 2,600 degrees and come back in and pressure wash it. I consulted on a couple homes in the Gulf of Mexico, and I've got pictures of it. The houses, 2 houses are sitting there, and everything around it is decimated. And it went through Katrina. The people who owned the homes, when they got electricity restored, they came back in, pressure washed walls, moved right back in. So this material can be designed. I've taken plans to Guam, you know, New Zealand, so on and so forth, where it's engineered for 220 plus wind loads. That's pretty good. We get a hurricane that hits 220, people better be way the hell away from it. Yeah. So, it's a matter of education, guys. It's a matter of making the option.
That's a house that John built.
Actually, that's the first one. That's the one I cut my teeth on.
What was that, like 1890,
That's-
1894? Where's that?
And what was their motivation? Was it fire?
Huh?
What was their motivation for going with AAC? Was it fire?
No, no. That's on Corvallis Country Club. No, the man, he was my accountant at one time. And I just told Miss Larry, this is what you need to be building your house.
That's a real picture.
This is Laguna Hills, and to the bottom of the photo is where the ocean is. And so that ocean air is what pushed that fire up over that bridge.
And the one standing is AAC.
Yeah. The people that own the house are standing there on that terrace waving at the helicopter, flying over, taking the picture. Everything around it destroyed. And look at how it saved the foliage behind and in front. Now here's some mentality. Everybody came back and built the same thing that burned to the ground the first time. And they just had a fire in Laguna Hills, okay? Destroyed 25 some homes, and some of them were $30 and $40 million mansions, right? Well, guess what? They burned to the ground just like a 1,500 square foot rancher in Paradise. They burned to the ground. You got the Katrina. Oh, by the way, this is laid with polymer thin set, okay, instead of a regular mortar joint in between block. It's a polymer thin set.
So I think we're going to get into some of the build assembly stuff now, and a lot of you might be thinking of here's a finished product, fully fireproof, Class A rated envelope, and that's for what we do. Being the designer and an engineer, we also do the consulting for the construction, getting permits, getting CD sets through the building department. That's what our responsibility is. Because as we've talked about, it's awareness. It's also an ignorance, not in a bad way. It's just knowledge base, right? Well, it's also our responsibility as engineers and architects and designers to be pushing this product towards the homeowner. It's not the homeowner's responsibility to go out there and figure it out. And it sure can't be the contractors, because the contractor's waiting for the project, the permit's already complete. So you're way too far down the road, right? And it starts with the architects. Now, it's not only just AAC, we're talking about in general of non-combustible envelopes. When we're talking about non-combustible envelopes is the shelter in place as the escape routes that we talked about. We are building houses and designing homes now with master bedrooms inside, master bedroom closets inside, and those closets can be safe rooms. You can even do oxygen systems if you want to add that as an upgrade to your house. So you have a 4 to 6 hour oxygen inside the house, because when you leave, you're going to end up losing your life trying to get out of the neighborhood or down the street. We are designers and engineers, and we do the light gauge steel studs, which is what you see here. My company is called Tainer, and we're not here to promote companies or even just specific materials as far as manufacturers, but I think since no one from the city showed up, I guess we can go ahead and talk about that kind of stuff. But my company is Tainer, and we've entered this market here building shipping container homes. And I am big in esoteric materials, and I still do container homes, but I have really pushed the AAC product and got deep into the science, deep into the technology of it, deep into the life safety of it. And so this is all of our work, and it's everything from the structural calculations to the LTA2 brackets, how the systems go in with the perimeter wall of AAC, and then how we do our interior wall light gauge steel packages, and then we put our trusses on top. And that's where John was talking about a 5 to 7 day, you have your structure, your skeleton is up. Moving into these, I'm going to pass these around, this is the structural shear panel, as we were talking about on the decking, and the second one is the drywall. You'll be able to see and feel the difference of those materials. Unless we are forced to use an OSB sheet or a sheathing or a ply or a CDX or something, we don't use it. We do not push it at all. And we are really neck and neck with those costs of those materials as well. Right now on drywall, who's bought drywall lately? I actually haven't, but last I knew is $17 a sheet, or it kind of bounces between $12 to $17 a sheet.
It's about $30 to $680. I didn't do the math.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can. And so the MGO drywall is $14 a sheet. The MGO structural sheathing panel is about $55 a sheet. But as you continue to go into the assembly, as you saw the one piece that was a metal standing seam, Class A fire rated. Underneath that is a peel and stick underlayment that's Class A fire rated. This is Class A fire rated. This is Class A fire rated. Our 2 inches of spray foam has a Class A fire rating. Our Eco Foundation, or sorry, Eco Bat insulation has a Class A fire rating. Then you put your ceilings in, Class A fire rated. You know, and so this is what we're talking about when we're jacking with insurance companies. And what are these guys really going to stand on? You know, and then even talking about building your house that has a full fire envelope protection. You're not looking to, now, if you have the opportunity to evacuate, absolutely, you should evacuate. Yeah, and, you know, so we can get into the real details of different pieces here, you know, even that went all the way to an end. We can get into heavy details of different materials, how they go together. This is what we do. We do the panelization, we do the roofing material. We can share where that comes from. We don't have to sell the material. We're about doing the design, the engineering, but also our role is getting it through the building department so a shovel can get in the ground and you can get vertical. That's what we do. And it's a pretty remarkable material. Another piece we didn't talk about is this being an 8-inch, this is an R24 value. Outside of the sound and everything else and the fire rating, but the insulation properties of it's pretty incredible as well. If there's, what I'd like to hear is another piece from structural standpoint. So this would be at a corner, and so you would have that continuous drill all the way down with a stick of rebar. You can go up to a 20-foot span with one stick of rebar every 20 feet. If you've got a wall that's 21 feet, you have a stick on each end, and then you have a stick in the middle, is how your rebar. So it's nothing compared to CMU. To where CMU is designed to be filled and rigid and hold, this is designed to move, as John was talking about. So labor savings.
When CMU breaks, it breaks like this, all the way down.
Yeah. And getting into cost of materials, are these things neck and neck with traditional build materials? Yeah, they are. But if you knew you had a house that had steel studs versus timber studs, how are you even going to justify that unless you're going to go, oh, I like the looks of that one better? Now, don't get me wrong. They don't always have to be lock looking. They can be just like a traditional home. We can make it look whatever aesthetic that you want, you know. But it's the labor savings.
Is there any element that isn't LEED certified? I know the blocks are LEED certified.
Blocks are LEED certified, yeah, absolutely. And there's different. Every piece of material has a LEED to it. Some materials go through that. Some materials just flat out don't care, you know.
And also another favorite thing I like to talk about is the pesticide thing. And Jimmy's selling a house right across the street from where I live, and we have a terrible termite problem. Well, that goes away, right?
No bugs.
I think a typical home over 15 years puts approximately 900 pounds of pesticide into the ground, and therefore on a water table. That's a limit. Yeah.
Whether it's termites, wood ants, whatever, you know, rodents, they don't touch this material.
Yeah.
They chew on it one time and go, ooh, it'll kill me.
I get into that.
They're gone.
Yeah. So if there's any, actually, I like to a lot of times take questions if there's anything that are specifics, you know, from an engineering standpoint, from a design, from a cost, whatever. We're open to hit on any of these, but really bottom line is that's where we're getting to, is getting into awareness, and it takes a team, it takes a tribe. You know, we're not going to be able to get all these people to change their mind, but once they see it, and that's all. One thing that we're doing with Tainer too is we're going into different areas and looking for get a lot, get it built, build a spec home, just like it happened in Circlewood in Paradise. People stop and they want to know what's going on. People don't like being first. Okay, fine, great. We'll just build one. There, you're not the first. You know, it's already there. You know, it's not. This isn't. None of this is conceptual. These plants have been around, even in the States. There's 2 plants right now in the U.S. already. There's nothing on the West Coast, which is sad to say, but except for Monterey. but this stuff isn't new, you know, and that's one thing a lot of people are afraid of is how new it is now.
I've built with this all over the world, okay? So it's prevalent in Europe. I've built in Dubai, Spain, Australia, Costa Rica, on and on and on. So what's wrong with America?
Man.
What was the motivation of the guy in Vegas that built the 5,000 square foot home? It clearly wasn't fire. Was it insulation? The R rating?
A combination of all of that. She's very sensitive to many things in the environment, okay? And I mean, many things. I think oxygen too. But,
Yeah,
James.
it's a running joke between us. Yeah, it's been a fun one to engineer. Yeah, this is the one that's one of the few in Paradise. We just literally had 2 that are approved right now. In Paradise, that the permit's ready to pick up. You know, the approvals are going through way smoother than they were in the very beginning. But this is
A vet bought this, a disabled vet bought
That's
this.
right.
Well, I was going to go down that road. Do you want to finish answering? Why is she?
She is sensitive to so many things, you know, that she came, experienced this house, for example. I had to send her the thin set, the stucco, on and on and on, all materials that's being used in the house. She has to sit with it for a period of time to make sure it doesn't affect her.
It's environmental sensitivity.
Yeah, they're going to be using fiberglass rebar because metal bothers her. Wow. Okay, it kind of, well, right now they're living in an airplane hangar that is steel post and steel beam and metal siding all the way around it.
Huh. Interesting. So a couple of things about this yeah. So is there any veterans here? You veteran? Thanks. So I just wanted to express my trades ambition. So one thing that they, you know, he's talked about thin set. You guys all know about the difference between thin set and all that. But one of the visions that we have with BRIK California is an accredited trade school called the Trades. And initially, the goal is to have it affiliated with what's called the Tailhook Foundation, where they issue grants and scholarships to not only vets coming out of service, but also to family members and even down to grandkids, I think, like that. And a good friend of ours, Roger Welch, is the director of Tailhook. And I talked to Roger about it, and John and I have torn it apart. And briefly, somebody coming out of the service could take their GI Bill, get their tools, go through a 6-week on-the-job, hands-on training program and be in the workforce using these techniques. It's different. It's not the same as building with regular concrete block, right? So I just wanted to throw that out there so you'll hopefully direct people to BRIKCalifornia.org. Stay in touch with me. I want to really try and do the trades and get that. It's going to take a while, but I think it's really cool.
Citizens, stand up. Don't let some government entity tell you how you've got to build your house.
Yeah.
Especially when that house has proven itself to be extremely dangerous. Extremely dangerous. Everyone in this area can testify to that. And you're telling me that I don't have the option to build out of this? No, that's not freedom. That's not freedom. No.
So has there been one pass through the Shasta County Building Department at this point?
I don't believe that it's been finalized yet because the owner, we have one up in the Shasta Lake area right off the lake, and they actually are making a bunch of design changes, so I don't think they're through. They're pushing their own permits. They're doing owner builder. I don't think he finished it yet, but it was because of the wife made some design changes. So I think that's the reason why we're waiting on that one.
Yeah.
The planning department has no business denying it. It's got all the ASTM testings, everything else, all your UL ratings, everything that a planning department could require.
I have had zero luck getting in front of any kind of board of supervisor or any building department or anything like
There's been some big changes around here
Yeah.
lately.
that.
It's
Yeah,
a little
well,
backwards up here too.
well, no, it's everywhere, man. It's everywhere.
Well,
I will tell you, there has been some progress in the insurance industry, and I think in Paradise, right? There's been some rate reductions.
I think this should be a good seminar for some of these agents around here.
Yeah.
I mean, clearly
That's
they can
cool.
guide some of their people, like, this is an option, you know? But really, I guess what it boils down to is we need to do a couple.
Yeah.
We need to have something we can show off to somebody.
Right.
And then it's a lot easier to sell it when it's there. We can talk about it all day.
I did a demonstration in Santa Rosa 2.5 months after the fire went through there. Invited insurance people. In fact, sent out a letter to every major insurance company in the state.
This is a terrible story.
Yeah. You know how many showed up for the demonstration?
It's not good for their business. This is what we were talking about.
0. But now it's cost them dearly, hasn't it? And it's kind of a perfect storm. They're starting to listen because they've created a vicious circle, the insurance companies. They've jacked insurance rates up so high that people can't afford it.
Zero premiums.
So then they're not insured, okay? And when it does happen, they have to put the people up. We know people that they've put up in hotels or apartments or whatever for 2 years and had to pay for that. Here, if a fire hits this, they got to come back and clean it maybe from a little smoke damage, So they've created a vicious circle, and their buttocks are a little sore right now, But we all know the insurance game too, don't we?
But it's gonna affect us though.
Is almost becoming prohibitive to live rural. Our homeowners insurance bounced up to 10 grand. We've mitigated, I have 200 feet cleared in every direction of the house, and we're down in the 6 grand area now after one visit. But that's still $6,000 a year. Our neighbors can't do that. They've got trees and stuff. They're leaving. They're not gonna stay there.
So there's lots of premium for the insurance company, and they've already paid out huge claims.
Well, see, that's what I mean. So that's why their ass might be a little sore, but
Yeah.
they're paying. Everybody else, we're going to pay for it.
Yeah,
I live in a subdivision.
exactly.
You've been to my house.
Yeah,
I live in a
that's
subdivision.
why Jimmy's paying $6 grand.
They try to cancel me, and they're like, because there's too much brush a mile and a half away from me. And I go, there's a fire hydrant across the street.
We
Like,
know their
seriously?
game. They want to collect as many premiums as possible and never pay out a claim. Well, it's kind of like going down to Rolling Hills and hitting the crap table, isn't it? Well, guess what? They threw the dice and they lost. And it's time to pay up from their side, not make the consumer pay up for it. That's not right at all. That's not, and they've created that vicious circle. They ought to be sporty and give people a break. Of course, they can't promote a particular material. Give people a break that truly build a fireproof home.
And they don't?
No, not as of yet.
So there's no incentive from
They won't be able to charge you that fire insurance premium. If they see all these start going up, then, it's all one hand feeding the other, right?
Well, the bigs are pulling out though too. Farmer, State Farm. I mean, Liberty Mutual. They're pulling out of this area heavy.
You could build it though, yeah, I guess not have a loan in it and just go with no fire insurance.
What they did in Santa Rosa, they said, if you come back and rebuild, by law, we have to insure you for 1 year. Well, how the hell does that work? You can't sell your house if you don't have fire insurance on it. So then they got real sporty and came back, okay, 3 years. Well, that doesn't work either, does it?
That's actually against some of their bylaws, and it's almost like they're sworn to
We're
not
gonna
do
have-
those kind of things, but they do it anyways.
We're going to have the Honorable Ricardo Lara around the shirt collar here one of these days. Yeah. Yeah. Because they're losing too. And insurance companies are moving out of this state. They're moving out of Oregon. They're moving out of Washington. Which that's really fair, isn't it?
With the lighter weight of this material, is there any special foundation requirements to build with this? Are we staying with a certain thickness if you build on a slab, or if there's footings, is there any?
Yeah, it's still it's still standard code. So you can do your 4-inch slab and your 1-inch or 12-inch footing.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they'll still require a moisture barrier and draining rock.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so as we start to just kind of wrap up and answer questions and do all that stuff, keep in mind BRIK California is a resource if you need to get to these guys. If there's anything that I can do for the community you're in or whatever, I'm a resource to find people and get answers for you. So thank you. Yeah, do it again. Let's face the camera. So thanks.